Hello, how are you? I'm Matthew, host of Truth from the Booth on Folk Up Radio. Thanks for making space for me and my guest on this Sunday, July 5th. A conversation with a representative from the Truro Housing Outreach Society is in the works, and with a bit of back and forth, that discussion tentatively set for next Sunday. But today, we're heading out of the province to the beautiful community of Perth Andover, New Brunswick. My guest is Mitch Biggar, the man who helped make it possible for me to share stories about the unhoused population here in Nova Scotia through this very microphone. Mitch joined me back in February of last year, so today we're catching up, seeing what's new, and taking the pulse of life in Perth Andover. Over the next few moments, we'll talk about good music, strong communities, and what makes a small maritime town truly special. What should visitors know before they arrive? What keeps people rooted there generation after generation? And because it's New Brunswick, we'll have to talk about the Grand Falls Potato Festival. Get some insight into the country music scene, who is showing up for studio sessions, record labels, live performances, road trips, and all the stories found somewhere between home and the highway. So settle in, turn it up, and let's get caught up with Mitch Biggar. This lighthearted conversation after this on folkupradio.com. Halifax, Nova Scotia, home of talk radio, Truth from the Booth, an ongoing awareness campaign keeping Canada's housing crisis on the front burner and in the moment right here in the Halifax Regional Municipality, the Maritimes, and beyond. True, real-life stories told by those living it, existing in the streets. They bear all and provide you a brief glimpse into an unimaginable world of misery and disappointment, resilience and triumph. Hear from those with boots on the ground advocating for change now. The stories of the unhoused need to be told by them to educate you, all of us. Hear all the conversations Sundays at 10 a.m. with a repeat at 6 p.m. here on folkupradio.com. Now, back to today's fantastic guest. So, Mitch Biggar, I really appreciate this. Thanks for taking the time out of your day for this.
Yeah, no worries. Glad to be here.
I make no secret that when I record these conversations and in my live streaming, I talk a lot about the weather. And I just want people to know, wherever you are tuning in, 162 countries around the world, this weekend in the Maritimes, we are looking at some extreme heat. Looking at the forecast today as we record this on this Friday morning, 31 degrees today here in Halifax. The humidex is going to be about 40 degrees. This is the third day of a heat warning, 30 degrees tomorrow, and looking at mid to upper 20s for the next several days. So I know we're not going to talk about the unhoused, but I just want people to know that there are people out there across the country, across the world, who cannot escape those elements. So before we get into a lighthearted conversation, can you just briefly touch, Mitch, on are there people in the community of Perth Andover who are in a situation that cannot escape the elements?
Yeah, no, absolutely, for sure. I'm aware of at least two individuals that are unhoused here within our community limits, for sure. And whether it's the heat, extreme heat, or extreme cold, it's dire situation for people that find themselves that way, for sure.
Absolutely. Okay. Yes, it's just it's unfortunate that people 24/7, 365 cannot escape the four seasons that come every single year. So another secret that I like to just tell people, this is how I do my research on Mitch Biggar. I just went through his social media. So everything that we talk about in the next few moments is just the who, what, when, where, how, and why off of Mitch's social media. So this is a fun one to begin with. You, on your social media page, you state that you are a lover of fine ales, good music, and community. And I'm wondering, can you tell the audience, is there a place in your travels where the three of those are combined into one?
Yeah, great question, and I think we're very fortunate in this province of New Brunswick. So way back in the day, it's been probably about 15 years ago now, I used to own and operate New Brunswick's smallest brewery. So it was a nano brewery. So it was a 1-barrel system, all electric. And at that particular time, when I got my license, I was the 12th brewery in the province to be licensed. There's over 100 now. And so the more I do interactions with musicians and I've still got a strong connection to the brewing community. I help startups get their licensing requirements through and consult with them and things like that. They have become a staple, I think, in almost every small community, not just up and down the river valley here where I primarily operate out of, but all throughout the province. And whenever I get a chance, I stop into any small craft brewery, independent brewery that I can. And these are community spaces. They are unique because of the liquor laws in our province. They are classified differently, so you can have underage children attend those facilities with their guardian or an adult. And they have become, sometimes coffee shop by day, brewery by evening, but they've also become community spaces where people gather and they do trivia nights and they do open mics and they have live music shows, every weekend. They have comedy shows, board game nights. And so I think, I'm of that mindset from traveling around Europe in my 20s that almost every small community up and down the province could support a brewery with that particular mindset and that model. So I think breweries are a keystone to every community, and I think that's where fine ales, community, and music are all combined into one space.
That is just the most well-rounded response. And it leads me, Mitch, it leads me right into this. Well, before we get into the next talking point, what is your ale of choice in the summer of 2026?
Yeah, so that's a good question. That's kind of changed over the years, and it's seasonal. Like my wife, she drinks white wines in the winter and red in the summer, and I'm the same way. In the colder fall and the winter months, I'm into the heavier beers, so the stouts and the porters, things like that, dark and a little bit more malt to them. In the summers, I had some health problems a few years ago. It's been 3 years this month actually, where I had a heart attack at work and had a triple bypass, and so I don't consume as much alcohol as before. So I'm into a lot of the craft non-alcoholic beers or the lighter beers. So a lot of the breweries have kind of pivoted, and they're making these light session IPA ales that are like 2%, 1.5%, or non-alcoholic. One of my favorite craft breweries is Partake in Ontario, and they actually make a super, super good full-bodied IPA that I cannot believe it's non-alcoholic, because it tastes like a real IPA, and it's a really, really good beer. And when I was recovering, they were sending me a 12-pack almost every week by courier, and so I appreciated that support. But so now when I'm out and about, and I have a couple of these session IPAs, around 2%. Grand Falls Brewery, just up the valley, where I host a couple shows a month, they have a very good light session ale, and so that's kind of my summer choice of drink are these session ales.
It's pretty obvious to the audience that you're very well-spoken, you're very passionate about what you do and the community that you're in. If I was a tourist in the summer of 2026 and I'm traveling up the Trans-Canada Highway and maybe my destination is somewhere in northern Manitoba, but I got to go through Perth Andover, and I stop and I'm having a conversation with you, what are you as a tourism representative? What are you telling me about the community of Perth Andover that if I had some time to spare, where are you pointing me to go check out?
Yeah, so Perth Andover is very, very. It's a unique community. I always make the joke. Everybody says, "Well, why is it Perth Andover?" Well, originally, when settled, we have the St. John River, which divides the community perfectly in half. So there were two independent villages, Perth on one side and Andover on the other. But I always make the joke, we have the one bridge that crosses the river, so I always say Perth and over the bridge. And when we originally started the radio station, we called ourselves The Bridge before we rebranded, rather. So we have this beautiful, beautiful waterfront here. I'm literally 9 steps from my office door here at Folked Up Radio and Folked Up Records to the St. John River. And we have a beautiful boardwalk here. We have a couple very, very nice parks just on the outskirts of town. We have a great walking trail system. We've got biking trails here. In the winter, we've got all kinds of cross-country skiing trails. We've got snowshoeing. But we have this beautiful marina here where you can, rent kayaks or canoes, bicycles, and you can bike and canoe and paddle the river. And there's some boats that are docked here all the time. We've got some amazing eating establishments in town here as well. We have the Little Stock Cafe, which I frequent too much, according to my accountant and my bank statements, rather. But we love the food there. He's very seasonal. He does things from a fresh menu. There are plenty of what's called farm stands. So we have these local farmers that sell their wares from their roadside stands, and they're doing baked goods with their fresh produce and vegetables and fruits. And, it's a great spot to disconnect from your online world and reconnect with nature and the environment.
Fantastic. I want you to quickly take us upriver to Grand Falls. On your social media, you talked about the Grand Falls Potato Festival, and you and I both have a background in radio broadcasting. So I want you to put on your Summer Cruiser remote radio hat, and I want you to take me and the audience through this complex. What are you seeing with your eyes? What types of conversations are you having at this annual, very successful event in Grand Falls, Mitch?
Yeah, so the Grand Falls Potato Festival was kind of, I think this was if I'm not wrong, I think it was the 68th year for the festival, and It is a 4-day event, and they put up this massive tent down by their one of their campgrounds right by the gorge there where the falls are. And there's food trucks parked there for the 4 days. There's live music going on at a couple different spots. They have a 5K and a 10K run. They have a parade. They have all kinds of things. So this year we were approached by them, and the radio station, Folk Up Radio, actually sponsored them. So we gave them, the equivalent of $2,000 in free ads. So we were a gold sponsor. And then we also do merch on demand as well. So we did all their volunteer T-shirts for them, and we did all their Safe Ride NB Alcohol sponsored driver shirts as well. And they've never had official merchandise, so they have this little character, this little Spudman cartoon character. So we approached them and said, let us work your official merch tent this year. We were on site on Saturday doing a pop-up record store, which was extremely successful. Like it was our second best pop-up record event of all time as far as sales went. And so we did merch that day, and we did their merch on Sunday. So we loaded up our vehicle and took all of our blank T-shirts and hats and hoodies and things like that, and we pressed on demand. So we made their merchandise as people come up and said, I'll take a medium blue shirt, and I'd like the logo to the left or to the right or on the back. And so we were able to customize the merchandise per individual right on site. And so that was a first for them. It was a first for us for doing this at a festival. We want to branch out and do this at music festivals and more events up and down, like maybe a Rib Fest or a comedy festival or something as well, right? So it was a learning curve, but extremely, extremely great group of individuals to work with. They're community run. I think they've got 12 or 14 members on their board. They're all like-minded. And so the older I get, I always make the joke that I say, I'm only working with people that are community minded. These are people that are investing their time, and a lot of times volunteers invest their own money because they have to travel to meetings, or they're doing this to pick up things for the event or whatever. So they're investing their time and their money into building something better for the community. And ground admission to this event is always free, and there's all ages events as well, and it just brings all the businesses in that area into the event. And there was dozens and dozens of sponsors, and of course my day job is at McCain Foods Canada, and they were a platinum sponsor, and we were a gold sponsor this year. And it's just a great event because it's community minded people trying to better the community and offer some free events for kids and the elderly, and they're running shuttles and they're doing all this stuff, and great local music. two nights of the event and everything. So I'm really, really impressed with the organizing committee, and we were so glad to be able to take part and broadcast a little bit live on the station there on one day, and then do the pop-up record shop, and then do the merchandise for them. And so, and if you're ever around that weekend, I recommend attending that festival. It's really, really good.
I think what you just laid out is why after 68 years, this event is so successful at its core. So just fantastic. In your travels, not only consuming fine ales, you get to experience fantastic music going into your ear canal. So I'm just curious, who are you seeing perform in front of you, like ages? And I think more importantly, what are these artists in 2026? What are they writing about? What are they singing about, Mitch?
Yeah, that's a great question too. So this year, normally every year my wife and I we plan a big vacation. So, this month we're gonna take 2 weeks off and we're gonna go X place and do whatever. This year we did it a little bit differently. I said, I'm always doing music and hosting shows and doing this. And I said, I really just want to sit on the other side of the stage for once. So we plan to attend a different musical festival every month this year. And so I've been able to go to Paddle Fest, Living Roots Festival, the Grand Falls Potato Festival, things like that. Hullabaloo is coming up here in August in Perth Andover as well. And so, and I've been trying to attend more open mic events. And this is key as well. I think open mics are very key to bringing up the next generation of musicians into our local music scenes. And when I say local, I speak about the whole province because we're all connected. It's not that far of a drive from one end to the other, right? And so in these events where they're hosted in spaces like breweries, because they're able to bring in all ages, I'm seeing performers from 12 to 72. Right, and at all different skill levels, and it gives those artists a chance to develop what I call stage legs. So you may play around the campfire with your friends, for your family and your friends, and do whatever, but you've never played in front of a real audience, or you've never been professionally mic'd up or plugged into a PA system, and so it gives them the experience to get some of that stage legs on them and get them in front of a crowd, trying out new original materials, doing some familiar covers with their twists on it. And I think those are very, very important. And, this year, it's, we're just, a little over halfway through the year, and I've been just blown away by the amount of local talent, I've seen across the province so far this year.
Are there artists showing up from different parts of the Maritimes, maybe south of the border?
I've seen at the festival level, we've seen artists from, all over Canada, and, Living Roots was a good example. Paddle Fest was another. Dooryard Festival is coming up here soon in Woodstock as well. And they've got Joel Plaskett booked out of Nova Scotia and some things like that. But yeah, we've seen a lot of like indie, what I call the indie, artists, and it's been indie rock, indie folk, indie pop. As far as style writing, it's funny you say that. I always enjoy getting, sometimes I actually get physical handwritten letters in the mail to the radio station, and I got one a couple of weeks ago, and I just want to talk about it because it really made me happy. So it's this little note from this lady in North Carolina, and she's like, "Thank you for playing independent protest folk music." And I thought, well, what is she talking about? And I thought about it, and I'm like, oh, well, I play Jesse Wells, and I play this guy from Ontario that has a song about Loblaws and Galen Weston. And I'm like, yeah, I do play protest folk, don't I? And so, but it was really cool. And I'm starting to hear that kind of set in other songwriters across the Maritimes and across Canada, where, they're making their songs and they're doing social commentary in their lyrics. And I think that's important. It's important for freedom of expression, but it kind of also is a place marker of where we are as a society right now, right? So maybe we do need to look at events and then look at politicians' actions and that type of thing, and if they want to make a stand, well, they're doing it through their lyrics and their songwriting and their singing, and I think that's awesome. So that little note just kind of made my day, but it also took me down this wormhole. I'm like, yeah, this is protest folk, back to the Neil Young roots here, like Ohio, right? And anyway, it's just neat to see. But you hear a lot of that in the songwriting right now, and then your typical, your love songs, your breakup songs, things like that. But there's a lot of social commentary going on in songwriting, and I'm proud to see that, because musicians are connected to their environment and their surroundings and the rest of the world. So it's great to see.
Your facility in Perth Andover allows artists to come in and do studio sessions. So just expand, are you privy to any thoughts going into why an artist is writing a certain lyric for a song? Do you have like any behind the scenes that you can enjoy?
Oh yeah, so I consider myself very, very, very lucky, and so we have a local musician in town, Aaron Crane. He's an independent singer-songwriter, but he also has a little recording studio just up the hill from our radio studio called Port Swing Studios. And we use him to record local artists and release them. So just this month, actually just July 1st, a couple of days ago, we've released our 35th track on Folked Up Records, all with indie artists that are either signed with our label or what we call label adjacent. So we're handling their distribution and things like them. And he's done a lot of those mastering and mixing, but and I kind of always acted what we would call, I guess, label wise, as an executive producer. So he would be the recording and the mastering engineer, and sometimes he'll do mandolin or background vocals and accompany him. And we've got a house drummer that comes in and helps us with tracks as well with the musicians. But in that role as a producer, I'm getting to hear, raw original stuff for the first time, and between Aaron and myself and the artists, we're able to sit down and say, hey, that's great. What about if we did this, on this particular track? What if we added some percussion or some mandolin? And then, we're not too critical on the song lyrics. Sometimes we'll suggest maybe, changing a wording or something like that to make the flow better. But musical wise, it's so great to participate in the process. And I'm by no means a studio musician or anything, but I don't mind banging on a percussion drum once in a while. But I really like that aspect of an artist coming in. I had an artist just coming through the other day, and I posted a little video on Facebook, and I'm like, look at this guy. I never met this guy before, but he knew we were here, and he stopped in and sang a couple songs right in the middle of the record shop. And original singer-songwriter was just passing through, and he had a show in Woodstock at this new cafe, and it was great. And so I consider myself very lucky to be involved in that creative process and get to hear these songs, sometimes for the first time. And artists will send me clips of stuff they're working on all the time. They'll drop an audio clip in my Dropbox or on our shared drive we have, or they'll send me an audio memo through Facebook, right? What do you think of this? I'm trying to get this wording. What do you think of the bridge? What do you think of this? And it's so cool to see. And so I'm very honored and very privileged to be in that position.
Oh, wow. That's, every time I have a conversation with you, the more I learn. Just fascinating. Like for people who are maybe listening to this show for the first time, maybe coming across Folked Up Radio, just quickly in a nutshell, if someone was to listen to folkedupradio.com for a 24-hour period, what kind of content can they expect to hear, Mitch?
Yeah, so great. Depends upon the day. So you're one of our radio presenters as well. So if you're listening, on a Sunday, you're going to hear your Truth from the Booth show. We have a radio presenter from London, England, Gordon Cooper, who does a show every weeknight at 8:00. And so he starts off on Mondays with hits of the 60s. Then he does 70s, 80s, does one hit wonders show. He does a show, rock covers, so it's other rock bands covering other rock band songs. It's very cool. And of course he's British, so he's got that very dry sense of wit, right? So he's quite comical. We have two Halifax based old radio guys like myself that do East Coast singer-songwriters stories, and so they do Songwriters from Here and Away is one of the presentations that appears on the station as well. And those two shows are great because they really focus on Nova Scotia based singer-songwriters, and they they have studios set up in their home, and they're old retired CBC guys or Rogers guys like myself, and they host open mics as well around Dartmouth and Halifax, and they go in and they record these shows, and then they take clips and they interview the artists, and it's kind of cool to hear their presentations as well. And then we have a show with a couple guys they're out of the Ottawa area, and that's on Wednesdays, and it's called Peel Box Radio, and they focus on indie punk and metal around Ontario, which is really cool. And so, not my genre of music by any means, but I appreciate anybody that puts the effort, the time into recording and presenting music and touring and doing all this stuff. So it lets me hear, musicians that I normally probably wouldn't tune into, but when I'm listening to the show or, editing the show afterwards, it's great to hear those as well. So, and we're working on trying to get somebody to host an indie country show. I'd like to see, a show in the evenings on a country basis. And then we're also working, we'll probably have a show within the next month or so where we're going to have an Indigenous presenter present Indigenous singer-songwriters as well. So we've got a couple things in the work to expand our offerings. Once a month I'm doing a Tragic Tuesday show from my time on the road with the Tragically Hip. That was my COVID project. I took 300 hours of analog tape recordings and digitized them, and got them cleared by Gord's brother to be able to air. And so I pick out clips and songs. I've got them doing covers of R.E.M. and Bruce Springsteen, which is stuff that's never been released. And so you get to hear some of that bootleg items on my show. And so things like that. But primarily what we try to focus on are independent artists from, of course, the Maritimes first, the rest of Canada, and then we've made a lot of good friends with U.S. indie artists over the years, so we play their content as well. And then we tend to play some major label stuff that's from more folk artists as well throughout North America, and we're extremely popular in Europe. Like one of our highest listening countries is Great Britain, and then Holland, and then we have a lot of listeners in the Ukraine as well. And so it's just interesting to see how other parts of the world are tuning in on a daily basis and digging what we're playing from all these indie artists. And so they're able to see that country listenership data as well through their back end of their music accounts on the streaming platforms. And so it's kind of neat, and I know some of them have said, man, I can't get over all the streams I'm getting in England. Maybe I should do a little tour in England. And some of them have gone and, done a couple week tour in England as a result of the feedback they're getting from the station. So it's all coming together almost 6 years later. And it's great to see.
Yeah, it's great to see, and it's just fantastic to be a part of. Your social media, here we are, the early part of July. You had made mention that you were searching for a venue for July and August. Where are you in that process?
Yeah, so we used to have a facility in town that was kind of my home base for about 5 years, was the Oak Tree Pub. They closed down. A nonprofit that came into town and actually bought the old Lewis Castle above the hill from where the studios are, called Elephant Thoughts. And then they also purchased that building as well. So they're a worldwide charity organization that does training. So in Perth Andover, they're running a carpentry program and a culinary program right now. And so they're running a class of students through, I think, every 12 weeks through their culinary program. So they purchased the old Oak Tree building here on the other side of the river from us, and they have an indoor wood-fired pizza oven, and they do the best donair I've had outside of Halifax. And they do like fish and chips and some food offerings like that. Fresh coffee on the weekends, lots of baked goods. And so they rebranded that building and they call it the Bodega. And so this spring, summer, they had built an outdoor deck and got that. They're in the process of getting that license with their liquor license, and they had built looks like a miniature steel grain silo as an outdoor stage. And so they're just firming up the processes of getting their last licenses in place, and then we'll be doing live music there with locals only. On Fridays and Saturdays in the evenings on the outdoor stage and deck. And then once a month we do a show at the old Lewis Castle, which they now call Passalia, and it's a really, really cool night. So we've done 2 shows there, and we've got 1 show a month coming up for the next 3 months at least. And they let us come in. We set up in the dining room. We're going to try to do 1 show on the outdoor deck, which is huge. And, it's a very intimate show. So they do a special appetizer-only menu for these shows. They only open up for us right now. The dining room is not open regular hours. So once a month, they open up just for us. The students put on this beautiful, beautiful appetizer-only menu. The bar is open, and I'm able to showcase these artists coming through. And I've got some really good acts booked there. I had Colin Sally there last month. We had a great crowd. The room holds about 50. Both shows that we've done, they've been at capacity. We had the Andrew Moore Trio, which is more of a jazz kind of blues band in there for the first show. I've got John Hines, which is a very famous Cape Breton blues guy coming through just before Harvest Jazz and Blues in August, and he'll be playing there with his trio before he goes to play the festival for 2 days in Fredericton. And so it's very, very unique. And then I'm also doing in town in Perth Andover, I'm also doing a show once a month at the Elks Club. They bought a new PA system, and we've done a comedy show there with John Doerr, who's a very famous, comedian. He's had tons of shows on CBC and CTV, the Comedy Network. He was just on the new Tom Green Farmhouse podcast TV series as well. And great show. We sold out for that one. And we're going to be doing some music and comedy events there. And then Grand Falls Brewing is kind of my home base, and we're doing 2 shows a month there, and maybe with potential to expand more. They'd like to start an open mic there as well, so we're probably trying to help them with that. But yeah, so we've gone from no venues for a bit to up to 4 or 5 now, so it's great.
Mitch, it sounds like you're getting geared up for a fantastic summer. So I appreciate your time. This is it. One final little thing to mention. I'm coming up on 5 years lived here in Halifax. I spent 21 years in BC, 26 years grew up in the province of New Brunswick. And I'm just wondering if I could take a 1-day road trip with you to refresh my memory on the beauties of New Brunswick. Where would Mitch Biggar be taking me?
Oh, wow. So I spend a lot of time in Fredericton, and I lived in Fredericton for about 7 years. So I'm a big fan of that particular city. There's some major things going on there right now. There is a very vibrant music scene there. They're in the process right now of decommissioning the old Playhouse, and there's a new performing arts center being built, which is going to be absolutely spectacular. It's going to have one main performing arts center to do, theatrical shows and big music shows, but it's also going to have 3 smaller venues combined inside of it as well. The main lobby is going to be more like a piano bar, coffee shop kind of vibe as well. And so that's really, really cool to see. And the St. John River's there, of course. You've got the marina, you've got the lighthouses, you've got all these businesses up and down. But I always feel at home in Fredericton. And so, I've got a lot of friends there, and Fredericton has the most breweries per capita of any city in the Maritimes. I think there's 14 breweries, 2 distilleries, and 2 cider houses, and a mead house. And so, whatever your craving for craft alcohol is, you can be found in Fredericton. There's also some really, really cool organic and vegan restaurants there. So there's that. There's also, the restaurant inside the Delta there is a great steakhouse and barbecue place. So, and there's plenty of ethnic food offerings as well. And so the older we get, the more we're into trying different types of food and listening to different music and things like that. And so there's an open mic in that city every night of the week at a different brewery or distillery or bar or restaurant. It's really, really cool. And like I said, I'm a big fan of open mics because it lets me go and lets me see new talent I've never seen before. So I'm always scouting for the label or saying, hey, you're really good. Do you want to go get into a studio and record? Let me help you with some grant writing. Let me get you some grant money to go in and record. We've got Colin Falley has a studio there in Fredericton as well. East and Nowhere Productions. We use him for Fredericton-based artists. And we've got 3 label members in Fredericton as well. And then after that, I'd have to say my next favorite spot in the province is St. Andrews. So I spent a lot of time there volunteering at the community TV station, CHCO TV. A good buddy of mine is retired there, runs the station. And for the small town that is, I just counted the other day, and they have 9 music venues on Water Street, just one street alone. And then they have the Paddle Festival there, which is my absolutely favorite maritime music festival. It has such a good sense of community and environment, and it started off as a bunch of guys paddling around the bay and doing shore cleanup, and it's become this festival which has just had its 25th year, I think, this year, and it's just great. And the people there are super, super community-minded, and I find that mindset in Fredericton as well. And so sometimes you go into smaller communities, and I always make the joke, well, it's the same 12 people on 15 nonprofit boards. But those are people that are dedicated to building their communities up and making them better. So anywhere where you have that type of entrepreneurial spiritship and volunteerism is a good place to go. And we're so lucky almost anywhere up and down the valley here throughout the province that those type of places and people exist.
Mitch, when you were describing taking me to Fredericton, and I was listening, I spent a lot of time in Fredericton University, visiting friends, playing baseball, and I was thinking, please take me to St. Andrews. And you did, so I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Mitch, station manager, Folked Up Radio, Perth Andover New Brunswick. I always appreciate your time. Be safe on the roads. Just enjoy the live and enjoy the food. And just safe travels, Mitch. I appreciate this. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on the show today. And, I appreciate your contributions to the station and what you're doing to make awareness of the unhoused, where you're currently residing. And it's not just a Halifax Dartmouth problem. It's a nationwide, it's a global problem, right? And so as a society, we need to do better, and we need to focus on those key things. And, everyone's human, and they need to be treated that way, and we need to focus on that. So I truly appreciate the content you're providing to our listeners, and you probably don't hear this enough, but, keep up the good work, man.
The long-range outlook for Nova Scotia this summer points to what forecasters call a fairly typical maritime mix: warm days, humid stretches, scattered thunderstorms, and regular chances of rain through July and August. Temperatures are expected to hover near seasonal norms, with periods that could climb above average as summer settles in. And here in the Maritimes, that means one thing: heat that doesn't always let go when the sun goes down. For those with 4 walls and a fan, it's an inconvenience. For those living outside, it's survival. A humid 30-degree day can quickly become dehydration, heat exhaustion, or another sleepless night in a tent that holds the day's warmth long after dark. And when the rain arrives, as it often does, it can mean soaked bedding, wet clothing, flooded camps, and the exhausting task of starting over yet again. Summer in Nova Scotia is beautiful, but beauty depends on where you're standing. As July and August unfold, access to drinking water, shade, cooling spaces, and safe shelter won't be luxuries. They'll be lifelines for our unhoused neighbors across the province. Because every forecast tells a different story, depending on who has a roof over their head. I'm Matthew. Before the music, a happy birthday wish to Kaya Moon, our only kid, born at 12:43 a.m. July 5th, 2002, in New Westminster, British Columbia. Love you to the moon and back. Have a fantastic day. And now, back to the music we go on folkedupradio.com.